Welcome to the Great Podcast, the show where we take a look at the important men and women of history and decide once and for all if they are worth all the fuss. I'm Jordan.
And my name's David. Well done. It only took
like 6
one
tries.
time.
You're right. First try.
First try,
First
and
take.
he got the intro. But welcome. Today, we have a very exciting one. Do you know who we are talking about?
No.
Okay. Do you remember what happened last time?
No.
All right. So, quick recap. Last time, we saw the end of the Flavian dynasty.
Right.
Titus had followed his father Vespasian after the year of the four emperors. In just over 2 years, Titus faced the eruption at Vesuvius, a fire in Rome, and a plague.
Right.
And then he died. Great rule for him. Domitian, the younger brother, had
leaving
been...
the brother with no business being in charge.
Yeah, he was overlooked his whole life.
Yeah.
Blocked from power.
did
And
it.
then suddenly, boom. Hey, you're 30. You're in charge
Did
now.
it. Got it.
And despite this, he actually proved a tireless and effective administrator, although a bit tyrannical at times. He did rule for nearly 15 years, but his disdain for the Senate and lack of tact in dealing with them led to his eventual assassination.
That'll do it.
He got poked a lot, and not in a fun way. Now, he is dead. But who is going to become the next emperor?
The world may never know.
Except you will. So congratulations. Last time there had been no heir. The year of the four emperors kicked off with the
Right.
death of Nero.
Oh,
We're in a
right.
very similar
Bunch
situation.
of power-hungry grabs here.
Right. So no
Makes
one
sense.
is really in line because Domitian didn't have any living children. And the Flavian dynasty was pretty much dead, partially thanks to him.
Right.
Because he was assassinating, or he was executing a few of his, like his cousin and some others who were going to be in line.
Yeah,
But now they're all dead. The Senate saw this as their opportunity to, first of all, avoid war. We don't
Right.
want another war. That would be terrible. Many of these people are still around from the year of the four emperors.
We're not
They
trying
remember
to
it.
seize power. We're just trying to stop war.
Shit about the not seizing power, but what if, just hear us out, what if we decide who the next emperor is? It's almost like the Republic.
Right.
Kind of,
no,
except
but
it's
it's not.
still-
We're not a republic. It's fine.
And it's still for an emperor,
It's fine. No, it's okay.
absolute
though.
ruler.
It's definitely not a king.
So, plus they really saw this as the only opportunity to reclaim their status since Domitian had spent 15 years making them not important at all.
Well, making it known that they weren't important at all.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Reminding
Right.
them of the
Reminding the
reality.
people.
So, this was their chance to get that back. The Senate actually already had a man lined up, ready and waiting, because, as you'll remember, many of the senators were actually involved in the assassination plot.
Well, right.
So they thought, we need someone ready to take the throne. That was the biggest problem with the Nero assassination, is no one was ready to ascend the purple. The man that they had ready was none other than Marcus Cocius Nerva.
That was a lot.
Yep.
That was a
I
lot.
I was trying to pronounce his middle name.
Oh, you just tried a couple times?
Yeah, it was
Oh,
Marcus
okay.
Cocius Nerva.
I really thought he had like 4 names.
He probably
5.
there probably are. Like
Okay.
he also after this
fair.
would have added, Augustus and
Oh, that's right. You
Caesar
just
and
gotta
all
put
that.
your entire
Title.
reputation into your name.
Yep, exactly. But we'll call him Nerva because
go.
that's much easier.
It's kind of familiar.
He was born in Narnia.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where's Aslan? Find him.
Give me a lion now. Well, this is Narnia, somewhere 50 miles north of Rome. It's not called Narnia anymore.
Wild.
And
There
it's
was a
not
place actually called
mythical.
Narnia.
Yep.
Well, you don't
So-
know that.
Well, you're right.
That's right. Yeah,
You're
you
right.
weren't there. Keep your hope alive.
You're right. I wasn't there. Let's keep dreaming. He was born on November 8th, 35 CE, so he's getting on in years by this point. His father was a successful lawyer, and his great-grandfather had been consul 60 years earlier.
Okay.
His family, therefore, still moved in imperial circles, and his aunt was actually the great-granddaughter of Tiberius.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so the family's well tied in, old senatorial class. Nerva had spent a lifetime filling official positions and cozying up to powerful people. Nero bestowed special honors on him for helping put down the Piso conspiracy, which is something we talked about a long time ago at this point. But there was a conspiracy, and Nerva
Rings a
was
bell.
one of the people to help uncover it and put it down. Nerva also served as consul with Vespasian in the year 71, which would have been a great honor. And then again with Domitian in 90 CE. So he served 2 consulships.
Okay.
So he's very well respected.
Kind of makes sense then.
Yeah.
At least it's a logical kind of choice.
Right. And this time with Domitian might have been for helping uncover another uprising involving the Germanic legions.
This man is just a special investigator.
Exactly.
Dude, solving conspiracies left and right.
Yeah, like what you doing, fam? So he served 2 consulships with 2 emperors and had another emperor bestow special honors on him across 2 dynasties.
This man should really be retiring somewhere.
Yeah, right. He was clearly respected at the highest level, however,
Right.
and, why give up the game when you're still winning?
I don't know. You're tired and old.
Yep, and tired and old is precisely what they wanted. So it made sense that the Senate would turn to him. He was
Right,
well
'cause
respected.
The Senate wants to run it.
Right.
Yes, it all makes sense.
He was well respected. He was senatorial class,
There you go.
which they needed so they could get their rights back,
Mm-hmm,
and he was old and childless.
Oh, dang. Wow.
This seems counterproductive, since lack of succession is what caused all of these issues.
But I'm sure the Senate's like, hey, so like my kid though, you know what I'm saying? He can be the successor of this guy.
Why don't you adopt him?
There you go.
There you go. So you're thinking ahead. Or perhaps the Senate sees this as an opportunity to keep electing the emperor.
Oh,
Maybe.
well,
Hard to
maybe.
say. But
Probably not that hard to say. We
this
know history.
is, however, the first time that they chose.
Well, maybe it sets a precedent.
It could. This is historic because it's the first time that they were in a position where they could kind of outwit the Praetorians, keep the army out of it, and put their own guy in right away. And it was all
Yeah.
because it was like that. It was so fast.
And they had a plan.
They did have a plan, and they had someone lined up, which is exactly what they needed. And again, by choosing a safe old man with no children, maybe they could hold on to power even longer. Thus, Nerva became emperor. He set about undoing many of Domitian's unpopular reforms and granting amnesty to those viewed as being wrongly exiled, which a lot of people were exiled by Domitian. He vowed no senators would be put to death while he ruled, and they would certainly have the emperor's ear and respect once again.
Well, that's looking pretty good for the Senate.
Yep, I'm sure they were quite happy about that.
Maybe even the people liked it, a return to like a sense of normalcy, maybe. Things
We
felt a
shall
little
see.
chaos.
We shall see in just a moment
I
about
guess.
what the people are feeling. The Senate declared damnatio memoriae on Domitian, which
Oh
means
no, they're
Hey.
not gonna like that.
his memory be damned.
Wow, God.
Time to start tearing down statues and ripping away inscriptions so we don't have to see
feel
his name
like
ever
the
again.
People aren't gonna appreciate that one too much.
We shall see. all the statues and other things made of gold and silver depicting Domitian were
Right.
melted down and put back in the treasury.
Well, that's
The wars were getting
okay.
costly by this
yeah,
point.
that's
Yep.
a good idea.
Now, it seems the people were somewhat indifferent to this regime
okay.
change.
Well.
You got to remember, Domitian wasn't a tyrant to his people, just
No.
the senators.
Yeah, I know.
Yep.
The people were probably like, yeah, he's doing all right.
He was fine.
yeah.
The average person didn't care much, as usually happens. It doesn't affect them that much most of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really does, but most of the time, the average peasant, whoever, emperor, whatever, in Rome, whatever he's doing. So Nerva felt the need to kind of get people excited about his ascension. Like, he needs support
He
because
needed
all
the
he has
people
right
to love
now
him.
is the Senate and kind of a good reputation.
Right.
So time to start handing out money.
I was just gonna say, well, time to start paying the soldiers more, Praetorians. Let's go.
Well, he's actually going to give 75 denarii to the citizens.
Oh,
All the citizens.
Well, I mean, hey,
And upwards of 5,000 denarii per Praetorian. But
Hey-o,
that's neither here nor
that's
there.
a big difference right
This,
there.
this is a pretty standard bribe by this point.
Pretty standard, right?
And hopefully the Praetorians don't start acting up again. Good.
Right.
To fund all this spending, he sold a lot of stuff, according to Cassius Dio. He sold personal property, imperial furniture, estates, clothes. Everything was for sale to keep things flowing smoothly.
Who's buying it?
Just other rich people.
Just okay.
He's basically funding it himself.
Yeah, he's just funding the government with the sales of things to people
Right.
in his country.
And then he gave away 60 million sesterces worth of land to the poor to help get them out of the city and get them working and get the
Wow.
economy flowing
That's
more smoothly.
Pretty smooth.
It's a pretty
Smart.
good idea. Then he called a halt to many celebrations, games, sacrifices, anything to save some money.
Oh, come on.
I know.
That's not the party?
So boring. Boring old Nerva. However, the old man was unwell.
I'm shocked.
A quote from Dio: Nerva was so old and so feeble in health, he always, for instance, had to vomit up his food, that he was rather weak. You don't say, Dio. You don't say. This man
I don't
can't.
know if it was the best choice. No.
Yeah, this man can't keep food down, and you're saying he was a
just
rather
pukes
weak.
after every time.
Just
he's an unwilling bulimic. He just can't do it.
He just can't keep it down. He was also weak politically.
Really?
He had the Senate at his back.
Yeah,
But they're the weakest faction. They don't really have any authority.
I suppose.
The Praetorians
There you
hold
go.
all the power in Rome,
Well, that's what the money's for.
and the army holds the most power, period,
Overall, oh, okay.
of everything.
So they're separate. So you pay the Praetorians, but you're not necessarily paying the army.
Right. The Praetorians are there
Right,
in
yeah.
Rome,
Yeah,
and the
they
armies are spread out along the borders. And the army was not a fan of Nerva. Can you guess why?
I don't know. Seems like a weak leader. Didn't give them any more money. I don't know.
Close.
Doesn't want to expand.
It's
Maybe they're
what you
bored.
were. It's what you were thinking about with the people, because the army loved Domitian.
The army loved Domitian. Yeah.
The army really liked Domitian because he increased their pay.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
And he had campaigned with them for many years.
Yeah.
Like he was out
Right.
there. He wasn't leading in the field in the same way as
but
others.
his
but
face was there.
he was there
Yeah.
administering it. The army had really liked Domitian for these reasons, and they had called for Domitian's deification
Oh.
while the Senate was busy damning him from history.
Well, yeah. There's a little. You're gonna
So
have issues
they're not
there.
happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they really didn't like the guy who killed their emperor,
Fair.
which is
Right.
what they viewed of Nerva.
Wow. Well,
Right.
I don't.
He's the
I don't
guy
know,
who became
man.
emperor. He
Yeah,
must have been the one that
yeah.
killed the emperor.
I see the train of thought.
It makes sense.
Kind of sucks for my guy though.
For sure. This is obviously just what they believed. Our sources
Right.
claim Nerva was innocent of even being part of the assassination. Dio says that he was informed of the plot shortly before, and they were like, will you do it? Will you be the
I mean,
emperor?
that would make sense.
And then it would make sense, or it would also make sense that he was involved. Because,
or just was the whole time was like, all right, cool. So when you kill him, I will be the guy.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yep. I would imagine at some point he knew in advance.
Yeah,
Is likely
yeah.
the
No,
reality.
it's not like the emperor Domitian gets assassinated, and then the Senate's like, hey, so
knock on his door.
Yeah, right. Just show up. Hey, so something happened. You want to take over? Or
Hey, emperor's not feeling well. Think maybe you could be emperor? Just temporary.
just in case something happens.
Just yeah. What happened to him?
he fell.
he fell.
on a lot of knives.
Big room full of
Lot
knives.
them. It was wild.
Either way, whether Nerva was involved or not, the army was not happy.
Yeah.
Neither was Casperius Aelianus. I'm going to say it that way, Aelianus. I
an
don't know
alien.
how you say his name, but Aelianus is how I'm going to say it. This guy was the Praetorian prefect under Domitian,
Oh well.
and he was loyal to Domitian.
Oof.
Again, the army and the Praetorians loved Domitian because
Right.
he paid them a lot.
Yeah.
The guards were obviously a bit torn about Domitian's death. There were probably some on board.
Well, they had to have.
Yeah.
Some of them had to have
Yeah.
taken bribes to just let these people in
Right.
and not come to his aid.
Exactly. There just happened to not be people on shift
Right,
that day.
yeah.
Right. Exactly. But there were plenty who were not on board, including his prefect, who was
Sure.
not involved. After the assassination, one of the conspirators was put in as prefect in place of Aelianus. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. So you can imagine that he's not happy.
I'm gonna start killing people.
And the guards weren't happy And the
Easy.
guards weren't happy either. The guard was actually demanding that Nerva put Aelianus back.
Mm-hmm.
And as we shall see, Nerva was one to relent. He was willing to give in to make everyone happy.
I mean, he's so old.
He is so old.
I get it. I just
And-
feel like, "Yeah, whatever, man. Sure, I didn't make the decision.
And he really doesn't have a choice.
Yeah.
But so he does back down and he puts Aelianus back in. And the cracks of authority begin to show.
Well, sure. Yeah, the man that really liked the former emperor that we kind of think you had a hand in getting rid of. And you're like, well, I'm number 2 again, so
So now let's look at the situation. Nerva was chosen to ascend, essentially to avoid civil war, like the Year of the Four Emperors. He was old and respected, and part of the Flavian inner circle, which helped some to side with him despite Domitian being killed.
Yeah.
Because there were certainly people in the government who liked Domitian, quite a few. But his position as a childless, sickly old man was a threat to stability, whatever the Senate wanted it to
for
be.
sure, yeah.
Because if he died, well, now like the Senate doesn't have the
We're
power
back
to
to
do
no
something.
one. Yeah.
The other part that was kind of dangerous to stability was his calm, deferential nature.
Yeah, right. It's like,
He's
this
not-
man isn't doing anything.
You really need someone strong at the helm right now. There's a lot going on. There's a quote from Dio, and it's actually in reference to a consul at this time from a man named Fronto. He is said to have remarked that it was bad to have an emperor under whom nobody was permitted to do anything, meaning Domitian, but worse to have one under whom everybody was permitted to do everything.
Do whatever you want, man. It's fine. It's cool.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, no, I know I made that law, but like,
It's
if you don't,
alright.
if you're
Yeah,
not
it's
feeling
fine.
it,
Doesn't
I
matter.
understand. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate
no.
that you came to tell me.
Oh, you want a thing? Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, sure. Take it. You're
Cool,
good.
cool. You need some money? Here, man. So, a power play was certain to come pretty soon. Nerva's position without an heir was getting too risky, and then the Praetorians besieged the palace.
Oh no! Who would have seen it coming?
Yeah, and it is kind of interesting. Like, what does besieged mean? Aren't you guys the guards?
Yeah, right. Like, aren't you already in charge of the security at the palace?
Like, what is sieging at this point?
yeah.
like,
who's stopping you?
Right, yeah. Isn't it just an assault? Like,
Yeah, like
why?
well, not even. Like, why don't you just walk in and be like, "This is ours now."
Yeah.
Yeah. All of the guards are ours, so it's ours.
This is ours. We got
Yeah.
this. But it matters because what do they want? They don't want to get rid of Nerva. What they want at this point
They just want
is
more
the
power.
execution of Domitian's
Oh.
assassins.
Let's go. Get
And
him outta
Nerva
here.
had been trying very hard to not let that happen because
Right.
obviously they put him there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, oh well.
Well,
Guess they're gonna die.
all the people with swords says it's got to happen.
Yeah.
I guess it's got to happen.
I don't blame them.
The second thing that they wanted was to show Nerva that they were in fact in charge. And they were successful on both accounts.
I think so. Yeah.
The assassins were brutally killed. One had his genitals cut off and shoved in his mouth while he was still alive. And
Wow.
then had his throat cut.
Wow. We heard that threat on a TV show recently.
We did. We did, in
guess
fact.
someone did it.
Was that shameless?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, yeah. So that happened. The other guy just got his throat cut. So I don't know what the other one did to piss these
I think
people off.
the first one had the mutilation, and they're like, "Ooh, that was a lot."
That was a lot.
And then
Just
they
cut his throat.
just
Just
killed
cut his
another-
throat. Just cut his throat. I don't want to see
Yeah.
that again. Then Nerva was forced to give a speech thanking the Praetorians
Thank you so much.
for threatening his life and the stability of the empire.
bet he
Essentially, it
put it
was thanks
just
for
like that,
reminding
too.
me of my position.
But that's how he put it too.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, thank you for putting me in my place.
Yeah, thank you so much. Fearing the growing tension and the threat of civil war, Nerva knew he had to act. Then, in late 97 CE, he came out and announced his newly adopted heir, Trajan.
Trajan.
The military man
We
currently
recognize
holding down
that.
the fort
Yeah.
in the Germanic region.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is our boy Trajan. Almost immediately, the power struggle ceased.
Perfect.
A powerful man with huge military support would soon be in charge. All would be well. Then, a few months later, Nerva suffered a stroke. He lingered for 3 weeks and then died on January 27th, 98 CE.
Oh, so we're talking about Trajan. All right, cool.
He had ruled for 16 months. Now
Yeah,
let's talk
yeah, I
about
was like,
Trajan.
That was pretty quick. That was a good
Yeah.
podcast. All right, wrap it up. Let's get to the categories.
So let's discuss Trajan.
Here we go.
Born in September of 53 or 56. There's conflicting dates. We're out of sources.
Close
It's
enough.
kind of rough.
Whatever. It's 3 years.
The
difference.
research is a little bit harder now, I must say. He was born in the southern province of modern Spain. He is the first emperor to be born in a province and not Italy itself.
Yeah.
Which is
Okay.
pretty wild.
That's cool.
His mother was Marcia, sister-in-law to Titus,
Okay.
which gave him some good credentials. His father was Marcus Ulpius so it's
You can do
before
it.
they added the J to the Trajan, it was
Okay.
Traianus.
Oh boy.
So I'm just going to say Trajanus,
You know that sounds.
but we're going to
Great.
move on. This man commanded the 10th Legion for 1 year during the Great Jewish Revolt under Vespasian.
Oh, there you go.
And he was a consul under Vespasian. So Trajan comes from
Oh,
good stock.
This man's got the qualifications.
He does. Despite coming from a province, Trajan's
That's
family
right. Mm-hmm.
is clearly the elite of the elite. Then his father became governor of Syria, and this was up there as the most valuable province in the empire at the time. Very wealthy, very powerful. He was then also governor of Baetica in Spain and Asia Minor in western Turkey. So his father was everywhere, and Trajan was traveling around with him, likely for parts of it. Trajan was essentially born and raised to rise in the ranks of Roman government.
It worked.
It sure did. But no one expected him to become emperor.
Right.
So far, all the emperors were children or adopted children of the current emperor or a usurper.
Right.
Or in this case, Nerva got elected.
Somehow.
So there's a few ways to become emperor.
Elected, chosen.
Right.
I don't know.
Due to lack of sources, not a ton is known about Trajan's early life. Not a ton is known about a lot of stuff for the rest of this that we're going to be doing for the Romans.
Tough.
It is. It really is. And like, I love how I'm like, oh, we're running out of sources, but the sources were bad too.
Yeah.
Or it's like, you don't know what you're talking about, do you?
Like,
We love you, Suetonius. We love you with all our hearts.
Sure.
He would likely have had the best education at the time. Grew up wealthy, but under a hardworking and diligent father. And his aptitude was clear very early on. He was good at just about everything he tried.
All right, show off.
He was a military tribune under his father in Syria, and by the late 80s CE, when he would have been in his late 20s, he had command of the 7th Legion stationed in modern Lyon in Spain.
That's pretty nice.
So he was doing a lot of good stuff. He was in Domitian's good graces in 85 CE when he was made praetor. The Encyclopedia Britannica defines this position as such: a judicial officer who had broad authority in cases of equity, was responsible for the production of the public games, and, in the absence of consuls, exercised extensive authority in the government. Basically one step below consul.
Okay.
So he's doing very well.
There you go.
It's unclear how much of these positions were still like doing things under Domitian, but he was still electing
because
them.
Domitian was very hands-on in everything.
And at this, if nothing else, culturally, it was still very important. And like the years were named after consuls, so you had to kind of keep it going. Around 86 CE, Trajan's cousin, Aelius Afer, died. He had 2 children, Hadrian and Paulina.
Hadrian?
Trajan and another man took joint custody of the children and saw to their raising and education.
Good for them.
A few years later, Trajan would call Hadrian to Rome to further his education as a Roman of aristocratic rank. It was important that he got the proper education. So far, Trajan still doesn't have any children of his own. In 89 CE, Saturninus rose up against Domitian. This is the Rhine region governor who rose up against Domitian, and Domitian had to rush forward. And I mentioned that Trajan rushed from Spain to join in the fighting.
Was this the man that the guy that was going against Domitian that he thought he had backup, but then the water wasn't frozen or whatever happened?
The Chatti, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, well.
Yep. Hey, you know how that river's not frozen anymore?
That sucks.
See you, bro.
Yeah, no reinforcements for you.
Yep, you screwed. Yep, precisely. You remembered something.
Hey, sometimes.
Hey, let's go. So yeah, that guy rose up. Trajan rushed to the northeast to assist. He arrived a little late, but it was still made a great impression on Domitian that he marched so hard to get there. In 91 CE, he was made ordinary consul for all his hard work and diligence.
Just ordinary.
So that's actually the good one.
Yeah, okay.
So by this time, there were 2 main consuls chosen at the beginning of each year.
Right.
These 2 had the year named after them, and they were the ordinary consul. Then, often these 2 would, quote-unquote, resign after a few months, so a couple other senators could be suffect consuls for some portion of the year.
Okay.
Since the job is really just ceremonial, it was kind of just
really matter.
you could say I was consul.
Okay.
But if you had a year named after you, it was more important.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's one of these things where it used to really, really mean something, but now they're watering it down so much because it doesn't really have any power. So being named ordinary consul was a massive honor, especially since Trajan was only in his mid-20s, or mid to late 30s, excuse me. The youngest age for a consulship was 32.
There you go.
So he was getting in real early for basically just doing well at everything he did. It is almost always good to be buddies with the emperor as well.
Yeah.
Until that emperor gets assassinated for being a tyrant. Then it becomes a bit less good.
Right.
Trajan did well to downplay his association with Domitian after the assassination.
No, that guy, I crossed his path.
Right.
It's fine.
But I met him a couple times.
Yeah,
whatever.
Special.
Dinner with his family. I don't even know what you're talking about, bro.
Yeah.
Pliny the Younger, who was fully in the thick of Roman politics by this time, wrote several letters and speeches about Trajan, and he always omitted his time with Domitian and his Spanish origins, the 2 kind of like stains on Trajan's past, according to the people of the time. When Nerva became emperor in 96 CE, he appointed Trajan to the governorship of Upper Germania, the place where all the rebellions keep happening because we need someone to keep it in line. He was obviously a well-respected figure by this point. Later, the following year, Trajan's adopted son, Hadrian,
There we go.
rushed to his side with a handwritten letter from Nerva. The letter informed Trajan that he had been adopted and named heir.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yep, just like that.
Here's a letter. You're the heir to the emperor now. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So this was probably a really big surprise.
Yeah, I bet.
Or maybe it wasn't.
I don't know, man.
Maybe it was a very clever coup.
Wow. The senators even talked to him, huh? Or did he plan it all?
Or maybe Trajan said,
He planned everything.
maybe I have all the power. Maybe I'd be emperor because you don't have any kids, maybe. Or maybe Nerva just thought, hey, Trajan would make a great choice. We don't know.
The world is never going to know.
The world won't ever know the truth.
Time machines. We need 'em.
Speculation remains, though. So, Trajan became heir. Officially, cool. I'll do it. Awesome.
And then became the emperor.
And then
real
Nerva
quick.
died.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Real quick.
No suspicious circumstances.
You said it was a stroke.
It was a stroke, and people in their late age very stressed.
Dude was old. So
one source I read said that he was like yelling at someone. So that could happen when you're old.
Start slipping into dementia there.
A little bit. And without any fuss, Trajan was proclaimed emperor. Stepped right in, and he was still in Germany at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't even back. One might expect that he would rush back to Rome to ensure his position was secure. But Trajan was a man of confidence.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Domitian said the government is where I'm at, so why not Trajan?
Look at you remembering things. Yes.
So why not Trajan?
He got things sorted in his own province before he left. Wanted to make sure everything was in line. Then he called on the Praetorian prefect, Casperius Alinus, to join him in Germania.
Dude's name is Casperius?
Casperius Aelianus.
It's really close to conspiracy. I'm just saying.
Whoa.
This man, I wouldn't trust him.
I mean, he is the one that besieged his own emperor.
Don't trust him.
Yeah. So Trajan called this man up to Germany, ostensibly to join him.
Yeah.
And potentially to get another assignment, which could happen. He and the leading men of the Praetorian Guard made the journey to their new emperor, and Trajan immediately had them executed.
Smart. That's what I'm talking about. He heard me.
Yep.
He heard me. That name. It's too close.
Yep.
We're going to get rid of that guy.
And the fact that they had threatened Nerva.
Come on.
And there's some that believe that it was possible that they had been in on the conspiracy, so Trajan had them executed. I don't believe that personally. The timeline doesn't seem to add up.
So either he was just like, man, you guys don't seem cool. I'm going to get rid of you so I don't get killed by you or power grabbed. Or he was tying up loose ends.
So needless to say, Trajan did not mess around.
Mm-hmm.
He then headed down to the Rhine and Danube frontiers to ensure the troops were in line. This is where all the wars have been going on with the Dacians and the other tribes across the rivers for a long time now. Things are in disarray. And remember, the Rhine legions that had revolted had been sent to the Danube as punishment. On top of that, as we've discussed, the army had loved Domitian, so there was a good chance that there was still potential uprisings to happen. It hasn't been. It's been 16 months since Domitian's death. Like, things could still pop off. So while Trajan was getting that all sorted out, he found himself standing on the banks of the Danube, looking north, all the way up into Dacia, and he couldn't help but think, "Damn,
What if we had that?
why are we paying this Dacian king
Why would we?
instead of conquering him?
Yeah, we could have more war.
We could have more war.
We could just have more war. Why aren't we doing that?
Trajan really couldn't accept what was happening with the Dacians and King Decebalus, but we will cover that in a little bit. For now, he realized that he needs to get back to Rome, make sure everything's sorted, but he plans on being back.
That's right. Put a feather in the cap for that one.
Once he was convinced the frontier was secure, Trajan finally set out for Rome. He arrived in mid-99 CE, over a year after Nerva's death. That is how confident this man was.
Yeah, he was like, it's fine.
He's like, I got this. It's all good. Eager crowds filled the streets. Spectators lined rooftops hoping to catch a sight of the emperor. To the shock and delight of many, Trajan entered the city on foot.
Oh, wow. Not on horseback or being carried in a...
It usually would have been like a chariot.
Called. There you go. Something like that.
Yep, a large chariot. He greeted senators and commoners alike as he made his way to the capital. He was a very jovial man.
Like this man already.
He quickly set a precedent of how his rule would go. The Senate is very important for the functioning of the government. Very important. And you should be treated as such, you guys. And he made such a great show of reluctance to assume absolute authority. I can't. Okay, I will. And of course, he was not going to relinquish any of his power.
Well, no.
But the senators are very important.
Yeah.
Very important. I mean, I need you. I need you so much.
It's like the beginning statements of every tyrant ever. It's like, oh, no, please, no, don't give me absolute power.
It is very much
No,
Augustus.
I don't want that.
It is exactly how Augustus got to power.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what happens here.
And the Senate loved him.
Well, yeah.
They didn't care if their authority was a facade. They just wanted to feel important.
Yeah, that's all they care about. They want to sit there and eat their grapes and drink their wine and be doted on, and people to be like, wow, you guys are cool.
That's stereotypical.
Yeah, it is.
It's a little racist against Romans.
I don't care. It's in all the paintings.
It's in all the paintings. Pliny the Younger wrote a tediously long speech about how great Trajan was and read a large portion of it on the Senate floor. A large portion because the full thing would have taken up to 6 hours to read. Just basically praising him. Now, to begin his rule, Trajan handed out some good faith cash to the people.
Naturally.
As one would expect. The soldiers also expected their usual bribe.
Oh, right.
It was tradition.
Well, they better get it.
Do you think Trajan paid them?
Yeah, but not as much.
Damn, got it in one. He did, but only half the usual amount.
Yeah, this man was like, I got reputation, I got confidence, okay?
As always, he was nothing if not filled to the brim with charisma and confidence.
Yep.
Somehow his reputation with the army was enough for him to get away with this and face no major backlash, which is kind of impressive. Plus, they had already gotten a bonus from Nerva a year and a half ago.
That's true.
2 years ago, whatever.
They just got a lot of money.
They just got paid. So they let it slide. And that's a testament to Trajan's position. He was loved by the army for his dedication to the military life.
I mean, yeah, dude was in charge of a ton of military operations.
He'd been in service like 3 decades by this point.
Yeah.
He was also a man's man. A quote from Pliny. Pliny, if I didn't mention, is actually not a friend so much, but close with Trajan. There are a bunch of letters between them, which is where we gain a lot of information about this time. Quote, your only relaxation is to range the forests, drive wild beasts from their lairs, scale vast mountain heights, and set foot on rocky crags with none to give a helping hand or show the way.
Sounds like Gaston. Is this every inch of his body covered with hair as well?
You know, I'll show you what Trajan looks like. Trajan looks like Gaston crossed with Spock.
It just sounds like fucking Gaston out here.
Leonard Nimoy's face with Gaston's body.
It is wonderful.
Yep. He's a weird looking dude. So the people loved him. The Senate adored him. And the army was ready and willing to follow him into the dark.
Nice.
So who does that leave for Trajan to get on his side?
Army likes him. The Praetorians?
Praetorians. Clearly a very powerful force.
Right.
Very important to get them on time.
He just cut off the head of the Praetorians. So
just smack my mic stand. They had played Kingmaker several times by this point.
They did,
and it was getting pretty rough out there for weak emperors. They had recently forced their desires upon Nerva, and they were dangerous to say the least. Trajan had executed the prefect and the captains responsible, but that doesn't mean that they're not still pissed.
Right. Who's to say?
He chose a man named Sextus Aetius Suburanus to be his praetorian prefect. The man had been close during Trajan's ascension and proved his loyalty. Still, as he handed the man the sword of the commander of the guards, Trajan said, if I rule well, use this sword for me. If I rule poorly, use it against me.
Wow, what a statement to be made.
Balls of steel.
For sure.
Just like, hey, man, you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, confidence out the wazoo.
I'm going to do great. Kill me if I don't.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Balls.
And his dude was like, yeah, okay.
You got it, boss.
Sure, yeah, cool.
With all the factions firmly on his side, Trajan set about ruling well. He continued Nerva's practice of recalling those exiled by Domitian. He also returned a lot of property which had been unfairly seized. Everything was going really well. There were just 2 things bothering him.
And then the Fire Nation attacked.
No.
Oh, man. I really
Not
thought
quite.
I had it there.
The oligarchs of Greeks were being a bit troublesome.
Okay.
They were spending a lot of money trying to upstage one another. This was weighing on the treasury. But we'll discuss that more in Lives of the Living. The important thing is that King Decebalus of Dacia
He had to go.
still being paid 8 million sesterces per year
That's so much money.
and flaunting it.
Well, I mean, is it going to cost more or less to wage a 3-year
Irrelevant.
war? You know?
Irrelevant.
Well, I'm
Dacia
saying-
was the most important
Yeah.
thing to Trajan
I'm saying it might be practical.
in the year 100.
Sure, yeah.
Don't
I-
talk
I'm
to
agreeing
me
with
about
this, man.
practicality. This is Trajan. We're going to war with Dacia,
Yeah,
bro.
I told you I agree with him. Is it maybe
Let's
it's
go.
practical? Maybe we can save some money by taking out Dacia.
Now, first steps, of
Right.
course, before we go to war, we can't do that. We have to ask the Senate if it's all right.
Oh, we need to tell the Senate to make an
Ask-
official declaration.
We need
Gotcha.
to ask
Right.
permission
Sorry.
from the
That's
Senate
right. Gotta ask
if
them
we can
nicely.
go to war.
Correct.
How do you think the Senate responded?
I think the Senate said whatever you want. I mean,
Oh, please, Trajan, please
Oh,
go to
there
war
you go.
with Dacia. Oh, thank you so much for asking, Trajan. Yes,
mean-
please, all the money you need.
sure, yeah.
Go
Gotta
to
keep
war.
up the facade.
They loved it.
Well, sure. There was an emperor that said, "I want your input."
Wink, wink,
Kind
nudge,
of
nudge.
say something out loud that I want to say, but people think it's you.
Right. Yes.
We can do that.
So now, let's take a look briefly at King Decebalus. We
Mm-hmm.
met him last week, but didn't really cover him, just kind of the war.
Right.
So he is the main antagonist for the Romans of this generation.
Mm-hmm.
The first real external threat in several centuries. All the
Right.
real problems in Rome have come from internal stuff, or the wars from external threats were really small.
Yeah.
Occasionally, the Parthians were a problem. Let's look at how King Decebalus got to where he is, but spoilers, we know nothing of his childhood. So,
Well, there you go. He
Well-
became king.
yeah, right. We don't know much about him until 85 CE. Dearpanius.
Is that the beginning of a letter or is that a name?
That's his name.
Oh, okay.
May have been his name at the time. It's a little confused with the writings, and it may have been someone else.
Right.
But we're going to say it was him. We're going to call him Decebalus because it's easier to say.
Perfect.
He was a general under King Durrus, who might be the guy who's actually Dearpanius or whatever.
Okay.
That's why it's confused.
Gotcha.
Right. But we're going to say Decebalus was a general under King Durrus when they started raiding
Mm-hmm.
into the Roman provinces under Domitian.
Right.
They kept pushing into the province of Moesia, and Decebalus would lead his men in ever larger expeditions until eventually the governor of Moesia needed to act. He moved his legion against Decebalus and was promptly defeated, his legion destroyed, and he himself killed. Now the gloves were off. You don't kill governors of Rome, and you don't
Right.
wipe out legions.
Never.
Now it's war. Domitian had rushed to the front with his praetorian prefect Fuscus. Fuscus had personally led his 4 legions across the Danube to return the favor to the barbarians.
But gasp. He overstretched himself.
Ambush, ambush, ambush! His legions took massive casualties, and they lost their eagle standard, and Fuscus
right.
died.
That's right. Reputation tarnished. The
It
man's
was not good.
dead.
But it was great for Decebalus. Mm-hmm. For reasons not completely known, King Durrus immediately abdicated after this battle and
Okay.
granted Decebalus the kingdom, which seems strange. You'd imagine he was then killed or something, and it was a
Right.
coup and blah blah blah. But Durrus actually lived out the rest of his days in a palace as an advisor to Decebalus. Bit
That
strange.
is the smartest man in history of these kingdoms and empires. He was like, hey man, you take over. I'm a chill.
We're gonna
I'm
go
a
to war
chill.
with Rome. Hey,
Yeah.
you want to be in charge?
Yeah, I'm a
Wanna be
chill.
in-
That's fine.
All right, cool, peace.
Cool. Smartest man ever, right there.
Yep. And Decebalus, saw it as a great opportunity to get a nice promotion.
Sure.
Several more years of fighting followed, but Domitian was being pressed on many sides. Invasions, rebellions, and money problems made this protracted war very difficult. So a peace deal was signed. Decebalus would become a client king, but Rome would pay a yearly stipend of 8 million sesterces, and Decebalus would basically still rule semi-autonomously.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you can see why people were upset at the end of Domitian's reign. It's like, oh, we spent all this time and all this money fighting, and you basically just paid him.
Nothing.
Like, he won. So the Romans hated the treaty. It was so disgusting of evil old Domitian. And years later, they were still paying this barbarian, quote unquote, king. So Trajan was among those who would not stand for this
Right.
arrangement. And as it so happened,
Gotta take him down.
he's the one who can change things. So
That's right.
in May of 101 CE, Trajan crossed the Danube River at the head of his army. He would crush
Dang.
this man who dared to call himself king. He would get back their imperial standards. He would right this wrong.
Very ambitious, confident. I love it.
2 of his legions led a headlong charge into their territory. Villages and forests were burned as a form of ancient blitzkrieg rolled through.
Let's go.
Soon he faced off against the Dacian forces at the Second Battle of Taipei, which is where Fuscus was wiped out. This was a great success, but the Romans had suffered heavy losses. Ever the wise general, Trajan ordered an end to the campaign for the season so they could regroup. The following winter, Decebalus launched a surprise attack across the Danube south into Roman territory. This forced Trajan to rush back into his own territory to assist his smaller rearguard in Moesia. 2 solid victories followed, and the Dacians were soon rushing back across the river to safety. Trajan then sat his ass down right outside the Dacian capital. All was lost for the Dacians, and their king knew it. In late 102, Decebalus agreed to peace terms. He realized now that he was not messing with the empire of 15 years ago.
No, man. This dude's on a tear.
He was messing with Trajan's empire. A Roman governor would be assigned to the Dacian capital. Their state as a client kingdom would henceforth emphasize the client portion, and the 8 million sesterces per year was done.
Yeah.
What Dacian could not do in wars spanning several years, Trajan had accomplished in under 2.
I think it was very economically sound then.
Yes, it was quite a good idea. For the first time in decades, a solid new chunk of territory was added. It wasn't quite a province, but it was new. Planning ahead, Trajan asked his top architect to build a bridge across the Danube, just in case they kick up a fuss again.
Right.
It's really annoying
Need to
having
get
to
back
ferry thousands and thousands of men across this big river.
Understandable.
So Apollodorus of Damascus
Apollodorus. Nice.
looked across the raging waters of the river and probably got just a little bit pale.
I was like, oh boy.
No one had ever constructed a bridge across a river so wide. But Apollodorus was the best of his day, and Trajan had great confidence in him.
First time for everything, my guy. Get to it.
With all that sorted, Trajan headed back to Rome. He was greeted as a great conqueror by the people and the Senate. And the Senate even granted him the title of Dasychus,
Nice.
conqueror of Dacia.
Well, that makes sense.
Mass celebrations were held. He continued his building works and sorting out the issues of Domitian's property thefts. For this, and generally good government, he was then granted the title of Optimus.
Optimus Prime. Let's go.
And in Latin, Optimus means the best or
Makes
greatest.
sense.
So he is, in his life, Trajan the best.
Wow.
Yeah.
This guy.
So while Trajan is off celebrating being the greatest emperor ever,
Sure.
Decebalus is planning his revenge. He'd spent a decade as king, and he was not going to give up his sovereignty so easily. He wasn't ready for Trajan, but he would be the next time.
Bro, they have so many more people than you.
Surprisingly, not that much more.
Really?
Because they can't. The problem with empire is you can't have all your troops in one spot.
More. Okay, I hear you. Yeah.
We'll discuss that more later. The kingdom's fortifications, Dacian kingdom's fortifications, were secretly repaired and reinforced. The army was regrouped and rearmed. And Decebalus started harboring Roman runaways.
Oh boy.
These would have been
spies. Or just
but
getting more numbers in his ranks.
More so, these are people that Rome wants to punish legally.
Right.
Deserting soldiers and administrators. So it's more just we will harbor them.
Just gaining.
And you can't have them.
Some population. Gotcha.
Not population. It was a middle finger is the benefit of it. Is a middle finger to Rome.
That's all?
Yeah.
Huh.
And I mean, you could probably, they probably use the soldiers and stuff to learn a bit. But by this point, they've been fighting the army for,
I guess,
20 years. Yeah. So, yeah, it was mainly just a middle finger to the government in Rome. This went on for years after the Peace of 102. In 105, Decebalus invaded the occupied southern portion of Dacia.
Got him.
The Second Dacian War was on. Trajan wasted no time. The Danube was heavily saturated with Roman troops. It had been the center of major wars for over a decade at this point, and almost half the troops of the empire were there.
Right. Did the man get the bridge up? That's the question we're all waiting for.
The emperor quickly arrived and assumed command. Time to cross the damn river once again, but this time they could cross on a bridge.
Hey, yo. That's what I'm talking about. My man did it.
Apollodorus' bridge was complete, and the legions marched across in droves.
Let's go.
Many of Decebalus' allies fled at Trajan's advance.
Yeah, they're like, oh, God, they have a bridge. There's a lot of them. They're coming really fast.
They're here.
Gotta get out of here, man.
His reputation was a powerful thing at this point.
Yeah.
And it would appear the whole might of the Roman Empire was bearing down upon them. In fact, as I said, nearly half of all the legions were in the area by this point.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. The Dacians hunkered down in their forts. However, the Romans were skilled in siege warfare. They systematically took each fortified position as they headed for the capital. Dio tells us that Decebalus attempted to get some Roman deserters to assassinate Trajan in the field. One of the men was quickly captured and tortured into revealing the plot.
Ah, cool.
Yep, so Trajan's got a good spy network as well. Soon, the Romans were once again camped outside the capital of Dacia. But no surrender would be accepted this time.
Nah, man, kill them all.
The Dacians pushed back the initial assault, but soon the Romans somehow gained access to the city's water supply and cut it off.
Well,
Slaughter followed. Decebalus fled. The Romans captured a companion of the king and demanded to know where the royal treasury was. And here's a nice long quote from Cassius Dio. The treasures of Decebalus were also discovered, though hidden beneath the river Sargetia, which ran past his palace. With the help of some captives, Decebalus had diverted the course of the river, made an excavation in its bed, and into the cavity had thrown a large amount of silver and gold and other objects of great value that could stand a certain amount of moisture. Then he had heaped stones over them and piled on earth, afterwards bringing the river back into its course. So
that's
he's
pretty elaborate.
Yeah, like the treasury of the largest kingdom in Europe.
Right. Just
buried in a river.
That's pretty cool.
And they got it, yeah. Decebalus was soon cornered by the Roman cavalry, despite trying to flee. He opted to commit suicide rather than be taken and paraded through Rome in triumph. Oh,
Smart.
Yeah, big time. He would have been probably strangled.
Oh, yeah.
That's usually what they did. Trajan continued the cleanup of various troublemakers. He burned down the old capital of the kingdom of Dacia and built a new one nearby as a big middle finger. There hadn't been a new province in a long time. So welcome to the new province of Dacia.
There we go.
Official Roman province.
Get that governor seated.
In
Well, he's
two
probably already
wars.
there, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
In 2 wars, each less than 2 years apiece, he had subdued the most powerful kingdom in Europe.
Dang.
Yep. The
This
only
man.
real threat to Rome at this time.
Right. This man just showed him and said, all right, got to take care of that.
Yep. And done. So Trajan returned to Rome for another round of triumph celebrations.
That's right.
Chris Scarr, the guy who has the textbook that I've been reading for this, says 10,000 gladiators fought in the arena and 11,000 animals were killed.
That's wild.
Yeah. It must have smelled horrible.
Oh, yeah. Lots of blood.
I mean, everything
death.
probably smelled horrible at that
You're
time.
right. They probably just got used to it by then.
In 106, the Nabatean kingdom lost its last king. This was a kingdom southeast of modern Israel, kind of right at the top of Arabia. Either Rome peacefully absorbed the kingdom or they seized the opportunity and invaded. Either way, another new province was added shortly after Dacia. So now we got another little chunk of Rome added on. Trajan spent a good bit of time and money building up the empire's infrastructure, primarily the roads. Administering such a vast territory required interconnected cities across vast distances. So it was important to have a working infrastructure that would allow the wealth to come in and orders to go out. He funded his public building works with the massive wealth gained from Dacia. This included building his own forum and a new port, which we'll discuss later.
There we go.
By 113, issues began to rise in the east. Remember that peace deal Nero struck with the Parthians? A long time ago.
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
It said that Parthia would name the king of Armenia, and the
Oh,
Romans
would approve
agree.
it. Yeah.
Right. So that's been going on for 50 years now.
Oh.
And it's been working great, which is
Oh,
why we haven't
dang.
heard about Parthia.
Trajan just like, nope.
Yup.
Done with that.
Well, the Parthians were in decline, and Rome was peaking. And the Parthians made an oopsie. The Parthian emperor put a man on the throne of Armenia and did not ask Trajan's permission.
Oh, no.
This, coupled with a desire to solidify control of trade coming from India, the Romans wanted a piece of the Parthian land so they could solidify their trade. And this was a great excuse to go to war with the Parthians.
I don't know. I feel like just saying, they didn't ask me. That's enough.
Yeah, that's what he said. But
Oh.
let's go get the land.
Well, yeah.
Because they didn't ask me about the Armenian
well.
thing. Right, might as well. So Trajan marched his army toward Armenia. When the Parthians heard Trajan was amassing troops, they somehow realized at that moment that, we messed up.
Yeah.
We messed up
Yep.
badly. We didn't think about this somehow. He's been emperor for 15 years at this point. You
And we
didn't
just-
think about it?
We're like, oh, no.
Just insane. So they sent an envoy to him and implored him
Please-
to accept the
please
new
no.
king. Like, hey, sure, we overthrew the last guy, but he was bad for both of us.
Right.
Both empires, he wasn't the guy. This new guy is great, we swear, just come meet him. and approve him. Like, do the diadem thing, put it on his head.
Too late.
And Trajan heard the man out. Let's not be hasty. Trajan's a good administrator and a good diplomat.
Right.
But he gave no reply except friendship is earned by deeds and not by words.
Okay.
And then he kept marching.
All right.
And the envoys didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, that's fair.
Does that mean you're coming to accept him, or are you what's so they rush back?
Yeah, better prepare something for the man.
Everyone's freaking out at this point because no one knows what Trajan's going to do.
They're just like, we don't want this. We don't want this.
And I love this quote from Dio. For upon learning of his advance, the Parthian king had become terrified because Trajan was wont to make good his threats by his deeds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When he arrived in Armenia, this new king came to their camp. Trajan sat at the center, surrounded by his vast legions.
Right.
The king approached, saluted the emperor, and placed the diadem at his feet.
Nice.
He anxiously waited to see if Trajan would place it back on his head. What do you think Trajan did?
I don't know.
He made no move at all.
Oh, boy.
And just stared at the king.
Awkward.
The soldiers then began shouting Imperator, like a victory chant.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
The king tried to speak with Trajan privately. Certainly we can sort this out. But he was denied all he requested. And another quote.
No.
So out he rushed in a rage, and thence out of the camp. But Trajan sent for him, and again, ascending the tribunal, bade him say in the hearing of all everything that he desired. So he said, Trajan, can I talk to you in private? Mm-hmm. Went and talked to him in private. Trajan said, no. Dude ran. And then he brought him back and said, no, say that again.
Say it out loud.
Say what you want.
Say it out loud.
The man went a bit fear-driven tirade against Trajan in Rome because he's horrified and going to die, probably. But Trajan took this in good grace. He calmly informed the man that Armenia was his, and soon it would have a Roman governor, for Armenia was now a Roman province.
Right.
Boom. Third province added to the empire.
Killing it, my guy.
And he didn't have to fight.
Third round of parties. Let's go.
Woo! Except, no time. Let's go fight Parthia.
Oh, geez. This guy is just like, let's get rid of all of the problems we've ever had.
Yeah. Yep. Shortly after, Trajan launched into Mesopotamia. In 116, he captured the capital of the Parthian Empire, Ctesiphon. This would be near modern Baghdad. That's how far away he is from Rome.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
He's just leading from the front, just taking everything.
Yep. And he's there. He is leading these troops throughout. And Mesopotamia was soon declared another new province.
Jeez.
This boy. In 117, Trajan was finally forced to fall back from the desert city of Hatra. The siege was not going their way, and Trajan had almost been killed by a stray arrow. On top of that, the Jewish population in 3 of the provinces, Egypt, Cyprus, and Cyrene, were starting to rise up.
Another Jewish revolt.
Different provinces this time, though. The slaughter of pagans in these provinces forced Trajan to fall back and address the issue. It was a legit issue. He knew he would be back to finish his conquest of Parthia, though. He was going to be the next Alexander the Great.
Dang. Or so he thought.
In 117, Trajan was 63 years old. The last 4 years had been constant fighting. Mm-hmm. As he returned from the desert, his health began to fail. As a result, he discharged his command of the eastern forces to Lucius Quietus, the governor of Judea. This man would go on to put down the revolt in spectacular fashion.
Nice.
He is so important in this war that it is actually named after him, the Kitos War, which is kind of a bastardization of his name. Fearing he may have been poisoned, Trajan set back for Italy. The trip could take weeks or months, especially since he was old and ill.
Right.
He was likely quite nervous at this point. He had no children. He had proclaimed no heir. Possibly. We'll talk about that later.
Possibly.
And what would happen to all his work should he fail to return to Rome in time? And as they made their slow way back, Trajan died.
Oh, no. Come on.
August 11th, 117 CE.
Hey, my mom's birthday. Nope. Not my mom's birthday. 2 of our friends' birthdays.
There you go.
High school friends. Not anymore.
Good. I'm glad. I'm happy.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of Trajan?
Yet again. So sad.
Yeah. He died.
So sad.
What could have been?
To really go get her.
Yeah, he was. It's like Wouldn't it have been great if you had started at like 20?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can only imagine that no one's going to pick up that mantle as well as he did, and all this progress he made is going to very slowly crumble away. Or quickly.
Maybe not so slowly.
Or quickly.
All right. Well, let's get into our round, shall we?
Yep.
Mastery of military might.
You can't talk about Trajan without talking about the wars, so I covered it all in the bio. So there's not really much else to discuss. We'll just do a quick recap. He is noted for loving the military life. He's also the first general emperor to continue leading armies in the field once emperor.
Yeah.
Domitian, led from the back, but was there, but he wasn't a general.
He was in like a planning tent. Yeah,
Right.
He didn't really.
And, like Tiberius was a general before he became emperor and then not again. Augustus didn't really do it. He's really the one. And he's a good one, a damn good one. He led massive armies personally during all of his campaign. So now let's discuss the estimates on the troop sizes. So for the Dacian Wars, it's estimated that there were 86 to 175,000 Roman troops in those wars.
That's a lot.
And 50 to 200,000 Dacians.
Jeez.
Yeah. So they weren't significantly
What a
outnumbered.
ranging gap for both of them.
It's really hard to know, especially
Yeah.
when ancient sources are constantly bigging
yeah,
up
yeah.
everything.
That's true.
And, I looked into where they got these numbers from, but it's honestly very obscure. So it's just take all of everything with a grain of salt. He knew when to attack and when to fall back. When a victory cost too much to warrant further aggression, he pulled back. Each of his campaigns were overall successes. 2 wars with Dacia brought quick victories. Displays of military power were enough to gain control of Armenia, which means he was a master of the military might. Didn't even need to fight sometimes.
Right.
Because he could prove that,
Yeah.
just give up. I'll
Yeah.
win. It's fine.
You
The
should
same thing
probably-
happened when he first besieged the Dacian capital. They didn't have to take it. They just won. And that's a great sign. You win every fight you don't have to fight. He expanded the empire significantly. Added several new provinces through military action and more through diplomacy.
Yeah.
And this is the largest the empire will ever be.
Unfortunate.
This is the peak.
It's really unfortunate.
Yes. So, I was thinking about it since we did Vespasian's episode. I've just been like, I don't think he deserved his perfect score for mastery of military might, because then it makes what Trajan did look a little bit less significant because it's the same score. Whereas Vespasian did a lot of good stuff, but not 10 out of 10. But anyway, Trajan, I think, is a 10 out of 10.
He's a 10.
Yeah.
He's a 10.
He's
yeah.
a 10. He's a 10.
Yeah. He did it.
So when we get to the end of this series or this season, we might need to go back and look through and allow ourselves a one-time readjustment.
I will not adjust anything. My opinion at the time is my opinion.
God, I hate you.
It will stay the same.
I hate you. Anyway, so perfect 20 out of 20 for mastery of military might.
Deserves it.
Let's go, Trajan.
Easily.
Terrible tyranny.
All right. So it is possible, if not likely, that he perpetrated the quietest coup in history.
I don't believe it.
Nerva may not have chosen Trajan of his own free will. It would have been clear to Nerva that Trajan could simply take the throne. So whatever the truth is, it paid off nicely for Trajan.
Sure did.
Something to consider. Trajan made the Senate very happy. Like Augustus, he used the guise of cooperation to siphon more authority from them. 2 provinces, which had been under senatorial control for generations, were brought into imperial authority. In fairness, this was due to gross mismanagement of the province's income and treasury, which I briefly mentioned earlier.
Ah, yes, the oligarchs just being like, I have fancier things than you.
Exactly. I built all this stuff. Look, I deserve to be promoted.
Right.
Pliny wrote to Trajan about the issue in these provinces and said, "It's well established that the city's finances are in a state of disorder." This was due to those local elites using government funds to build unnecessary buildings. As one can imagine, this was not great. So
Get them out of there.
So pulling that authority away from them, can seem a bit tyrannical, but it also makes sense.
No, that's just a good government move.
Yeah, my question was, is this tyranny or good governance? So
Man.
yeah. He was likely a homosexual by our modern standard, the way because they don't have those words.
Oh, okay. I was like, what do you mean?
Because back then, there
how
aren't
do you-
words for homosexuals. They just
Right.
had sex with
No,
whomever.
no, yeah, I hear you. I was just
Gotcha.
like, by our standards. I was like, well, I mean,
Right,
did-
yeah.
did he
We
have
would probably
sex with-
define him as a
with other
homosexual.
guys, or what do you?
And he also liked boys.
Well,
How do we rate that where it wasn't a huge deal to the Romans? It wasn't terrible or tyrannical, but to us it's disquieting.
I don't know. It's pretty normal for their society.
It's notable, though, that he's,
Sure.
Dio makes the point to say that he never harmed any of the boys.
Well,
Yep, so there's that. Not great. We're in the early 100s CE now, which means Christians are starting to pop up quite a bit.
that's right.
And by quite a bit, I mean this is the first time. we have letters from 112 CE between Pliny and Trajan discussing the issue. This is one of the most famous letters between them because they're discussing the issue of the Christians. This is actually the first document about Christians, which was not written by Christians that we
Okay.
have anyway.
Yeah.
So Pliny is the governor of Pontus, which is in northern Turkey, modern Turkey.
Okay.
And it's kind of unclear why being Christian is a problem at this point, but it's likely that they don't worship multiple gods, and that's just such a foreign concept to the Romans that they're scary.
That pretty much was like the main issue.
Right, that
of
and they
early
just keep trying to convert
Christianity.
everybody. These bastards.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were just weird, and the state genuinely feared them because it was like, what are you guys doing? We've never seen the Jews don't try and convert us. What are you
Right. I was
doing?
gonna say like the Jews also believe in one God, but they're just keep to themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
The Jews, the faith of Judaism is not a big spread out and tell
Right.
everyone like Christianity is. So the people that Pliny is talking about in his letters were being accused anonymously of being Christians. Like, people were
Oh,
submitting
boy.
and saying, "Hey, this guy's Christian. I know it."
Oh,
and then
boy.
and the punishment for like failing to like give up Christianity was execution. So this was like a big problem. So Trajan was on board with executing Christians who kicked up a fuss. That was actually fine. So take that for the terrible tyranny that you will. But he pointed out that that believing anonymous accusations was always going to be a bad idea.
Right.
So
Smart.
don't do that. And if they don't kick up a fuss, and if they just pretend to give up Christianity,
Sure.
like whatever they do behind closed doors, I don't
Right.
care. But if they do it in public, execute them. That's what Trajan said. So that, once again, not the worst thing. It's pretty bad.
When everybody wants him to kill him, and he's just like, I mean,
do we really need to? That's about
Not
it
much
for-
going on here.
Yeah, so not a whole lot going on. Pliny points out that, quote, men learn better from examples. So while Trajan was an autocrat, he ruled through good leadership and respect rather than fear and insolence.
Right. Yeah.
So terrible tyranny. I think really modern ears, the boy thing might earn a point or two, but to them it wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah, and I don't know. When you're thinking of tyranny, I'm thinking of like
Well,
country-wise.
Well, yeah, but how terrible were they or how tyrannical? They're both kind of lumped in.
Yeah. I guess.
And then the Christian thing. So I'm thinking like 1 or 2.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2.
Okay. I might go just 1. We'll give him a nice low score for that one. So that is a total of 3 for terrible tyranny. Not bad. We use these scores to judge how interesting they are. And, sometimes you're not a tyrant. You're still really interesting. So I think Trajan's going to fall into that category. On to the next.
Lives of the Living.
So Lives of the Living. A quote from Dio, and this section will be kind of heavy with quotes because there were some good ones. Everyone was always praising Trajan. When he came to Rome, he did much to reform the administration of affairs and much to please the better element. To the public business, he gave unusual attention, making many grants, for example, to the cities in Italy for the support of their children, and upon the good citizens he conferred many favors. And that thing about support of their children, he had massive orphanage funding programs.
Well, that's nice.
So he took care of the
Yeah.
orphans of Italy. The Senate loved him so much that they gave him the honorific of Optimus, which means greatest. He devalued the currency and decreased the silver content of the denarius by 4.5%. This, coupled with massive gold influx from Dacia, funded much of his reign, including the orphan program. And this might not be the best thing for the economy, but in the short run, and by short run I mean like the next 60 years,
Yeah.
it works great. Like, we have so much more gold, we can devalue what we've got, and it's all worth more. I'm not an economist, but I do know that it worked for them for that moment.
At that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
A quote from Pliny. When it comes to public building, you do it on a grand scale. Here stands a colonnade, there a shrine, rising as if by magic, so rapidly as to seem remodeled rather than freshly built. Basically, just praising him for all the things he was building in Rome, because he built a lot, including a new port at Ostia. Ostia is the port of Rome, because Rome isn't on the sea. Mm-hmm. Claudius had built a port, and it wasn't very good. Didn't work quite right. So Trajan commissioned, I believe it's either a hexagonal or octagonal port, and it really helped things out. Final quote on the good side here from Dio. Trajan was most conspicuous for his justice. He did not envy nor slay anyone, but honored and exalted all good men without exception, and hence he neither feared nor hated any of them. To slanders he paid very little heed, and he was no slave of anger. He refrained equally from the money of others and from unjust murders.
Wild.
Just screaming praises for this man being a good dude.
Yeah.
Cons for the lives of the living. It wasn't great to be a Christian.
Well, that's fair.
But there were very few Christians.
Right.
They were a very small minority. Even my sketchy book that I haven't really been, I was like
sketchy book.
So when I started this project, I got 2 textbooks on Rome. One that's called like the Dark History, that's supposed to be like just all the like bad crazy things that they did, and then like a more normal one. I haven't been using the bad crazy one because I could tell how much they're trying to really amplify every little like bad thing.
Yeah.
So with Trajan, I was like, damn, like I can't really think of too much like negatives here. So I thought I'll look in that book and see what they say. And they're basically like, he was great.
Well,
so
I mean, I don't know, man.
Yeah. He liked drinking a bit and fancied boys. That's about the only other thing. And it said even that he didn't ever get drunk. He just liked to drink a bit.
Yeah. He also didn't harm any of the boys.
And didn't harm the boys.
Allegedly.
Which, I mean, I'm sure most abusers say. But
right.
Yeah, but, overall, lives of the living, we're at the peak. This is, we are now in what is considered the golden age of Rome. I got to give him a 10.
Expanded the empire. People really liked it.
Economy's great. Gains were great. Military's at its peak.
Yeah. And then he died.
Then he died, but not, he lived long enough to get things going pretty well.
But not long enough to become the villain.
Not long enough to be the truth. So
I'll give him a 10.
10? Yeah, let's go Trajan. He's on his way to be mate. Wow, the low tyranny might really screw it up. Might really lower him down. But on to the next.
Departing
demise. So Trajan's death is not by itself that interesting.
No.
He was on campaign in his early 60s, started feeling ill, and as he headed back, he died. Not that interesting, pretty basic. But the immediate fallout of his death was very interesting.
I don't wanna.
So, we have not yet mentioned Trajan's wife.
Yeah.
Her name is Plotina, and she is awesome. She was always by his side and doing great things, despite him liking men. Mm-hmm. They had a very loving relationship, from what we can tell, and she was his queen and certainly influenced his favorable deeds in government. The orphanage thing and all that. She was certainly there. She was viewed as the benevolent queen.
That's pretty awesome for her.
Yes, she was great. And my theory, this is just something that popped into my head, perhaps caring for the children caring for these orphans was because she did not have children. It was her way of helping the children of the empire. Plotina was a powerful force in her husband's government simply by being a benevolent woman. Mm-hmm. Like, women didn't have power, but if everyone loves you, you've got some level of power.
Yeah.
But without children, who would assume power when Trajan died? She can't. This is not a time where queens are accepted in any way. This was the same issue that Nerva and Domitian had found themselves in, and Trajan just dropped dead halfway across the empire with no heir proclaimed.
Yeah, he was like, oh no.
Maybe. This might all be wrong, and the heir may have already been chosen. Different things, but we're going with this one.
Okay.
Plotina quickly set about remedying this issue. She swore all Trajan's attendants to secrecy after his death. While they were still heading back. No one can know that he's dead. He is still leading right now.
We can't have everything fall apart.
Yep. They continued carrying the body back to Rome, where she quickly hired an actor who looked like Trajan to play him and proclaim an heir.
Smooth.
Want to take a guess who the heir is?
Hadrian.
Hadrian. He was declared the heir. He was already the adopted son of Trajan, just
Yeah,
hadn't been
that's what I was
officially
like.
declared emperor.
Yeah.
Or declared Caesar. It was at this point that she shared with her that her husband was dead. And apparently no one questioned why he was like half melted in the back of a carriage by this point. But a stable transfer of power is enough to get people to overlook most things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I figured might be able to scrape out a few points with the story of after his
They gotta
death.
spice it up.
Yep. Let's see.
Yeah.
It's probably somewhere
It's
in
rough.
the 4 or 5.
Yeah, I was gonna say 4.
Okay, I'll go 5. You go 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the 4. It's more or less just unfortunate than it is interesting.
Right.
Just
yeah.
like, oh, come on, really?
Really?
We just got there though. Dude caught a cold and dropped dead.
What a
Rough
bitch
life.
boy.
Lasting legacy.
So, Trajan has quite a few things that have carried on into the modern day for us. He's probably not very well remembered. People have probably heard the name.
I recognize the name,
but
yeah,
what are the,
but I didn't know
no one knows anything
super
about.
cool.
Right. So we have Trajan's column, which is awesome. It may have been created by Apollodorus of Damascus, not entirely clear, but it is a 30-meter tall column. That's 98 feet. 35 meters or 115 feet when you include the pedestal that it's standing on. This was likely commissioned by the Senate, and it depicts Trajan's wars against the Dacians in a beautiful relief.
Well, that's really
that
cool.
spirals up the column.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. There used to be 2 libraries that stood nearby. It's in Trajan's Forum, and they stood up alongside it so that you could climb the stairs of the library and keep
to
seeing
look at all of it.
all of it up to
That's
the top.
cool.
And in ancient times, it would have been very brightly painted and had vibrant colors. We still have it today. It's just white, and it's so beautiful. Interestingly, there's a scene depicting 4 Dacian women torturing 2 naked men on it.
Interesting.
This is strange primarily because women are very rarely featured in ancient Roman art, like at all, and let alone on a war monument. So just kind of an interesting factoid. This is one of the great pieces of history that survives to this day, and it really teaches us a lot about the Roman military at the time, the way they viewed things. They were telling their story, and we get to see how they viewed everything. So it's very important to the study of history. Next, his bridge.
Yes.
So after Trajan beat up the Dacians the first time, he
Yep.
had Apollodorus build a bridge across the lower Danube River, which had never been done before. This would go on to become the longest bridge in human history for 1,000 years.
That's wild.
Insane. It was designed with segmented arches. Have you ever seen an aqueduct? So how they have like arch, chunk of concrete, arch. That's how this was designed, but even bigger.
Smart.
Yep. It was 1,135 meters long,
Oh, jeez.
15 meters wide, and 19 meters high from the surface of the river. That's 3,724 feet long, 49 feet wide, and 62 feet high. It was
That's
massive. It's almost a
ridiculous.
mile long.
Yeah.
It's
Almost
getting
like,
close.
That's like 2/3 of a mile
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's 5,200.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're getting 1,500 feet short of a mile.
Yeah.
It's long. And to do this in ancient times is
Yeah.
insane.
It's wild.
It remained in use for a little over 160 years until the concern was less about going over and attacking and who was coming over and attacking us.
Oh, so they
So
just kind of stopped going over.
They dismantled it.
Oh, no.
Yep, very sad. And for a long time, there were just the like
Oh,
anchor
yeah,
things,
just like
whatever
the
they're
columns,
called.
I don't
Yeah, the
know,
columns
whatever.
that were in the river. But most of that's gone now too. It's very sad. But for 1,000 years, it was the longest
Super
thing.
interesting to think of the engineering. Like, how did you plant the foundation back then?
Right.
In a rushing river.
In such a wide rushing river and line it up right and they did it quickly.
Yeah.
The first war ended in 102 and the second war started in 105.
And they had it done.
And they had it done.
Wild.
It's insane. It's insane. The Romans are
yeah. Ancient
insane.
engineering is super, super fascinating.
It is. Continuing on with lasting legacy, the empire that people often see on maps is the empire at its greatest expanse at the time of Trajan's death in 117.
yeah.
That's what you see because that's what people want to see is at the peak, and that's where we are. Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
Trajan is the only non-Christian Roman to go to paradise in Dante's Inferno.
Wild.
Now, I did see that apparently many believed that he was a Christian
Secretly.
in that time.
Just like,
Yeah, despite that very clearly not being true.
I guess.
We got
I
a couple
guess
hundred
you'd be
years
like,
before
oh, he
Romans
didn't-
start doing that.
He didn't want Christians to openly be murdered.
Yeah.
I guess he was one.
Yeah, right? He must have been. So, moving forward, the Senate would say to new emperors when they were, proclaimed, may you be more fortunate than Augustus and better than Trajan.
Oh.
Because they considered him the best emperor. Augustus was, great. He did wonderful things. Trajan was the best.
Yeah, dude, he's the optimist.
Yeah. So, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot. I'm tempted to just give him that full tenor again.
I'm going to give him a 10. Yep.
Big 10 for that lasting legacy.
He gets
Trajan,
it.
my boy, I was so happy while researching him. I was like, I know a good bit about Trajan, but damn, is he interesting.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, for lasting legacy being like the picture of Rome, that when you Google a map of ancient Rome, that's what you're going to see.
Right.
Really? Like, come on.
Exactly. It's wild. And again, for someone who's, not that well known to the modern person, he's so important and did so much.
Yeah, definitely.
Just fascinating. All right, then we only have one last round to go.
The Great?
Yes, he deserves the great, right?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's pretty on the fence here.
Yeah, I'm waffling. I'm waffling. No, I think he has to.
Yeah.
He's one of the best Roman
Yeah,
emperors.
he really needs to.
In his life, halfway through his reign, they proclaimed him the greatest,
Yeah.
and then didn't change their minds.
Right. Yeah, no, he was only getting better.
Yeah,
And then he died.
and then he
He
died.
died. God.
Yep. There's
unfortunate.
a quote from him basically saying like, I could have been Alexander had I been younger.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you
Yeah,
could've.
he could. He literally walked into wherever he wanted to take and then took it
Yep.
until his last campaign when he was getting old and he was like, kind of sick. Oh no.
Oh no. All right, so that's a yes.
Yeah.
We need to figure out some way to celebrate when people get the great. I
You
don't
just
know.
need to get a sound bite or something.
A soundbite to
Throw it in
Woo!
there.
Yeah, Trajan. All right, terrific. So let's give him an epithet. Honestly, I had a bit of trouble because he's not.
He's already got a bunch of them.
Yeah, so I got Trajan the greatest, conqueror, the best, and the golden for the golden age. But I am open to ideas because I just couldn't think of
I
any.
don't know. I think the Senate had it right.
The
with
greatest?
Optimus.
So, Trajan the Optimus.
Yeah. Or Optimus Trajan.
Optimus Trajan? Okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
okay. We'll just call him Optimus Trajan.
Yes. Yeah, I think they already did it for us. They did it.
Yep. It's probably doesn't make sense in the Latin, but
I don't
Optimus
care.
Trajan. I like that. All right. So his final score was 72.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty dang good.
He is only behind Caesar and Augustus, and that's only because
Yeah, I was
they
gonna
were a
say-
bit
I was
crazy.
gonna say if only he executed more people, he could be up there.
Right. That and if his death was a little more interesting.
That's true. Yeah.
Yep.
He was just a good guy who most people liked, and he got sick. And
I'm
died.
curious if there's I don't think it's possible to get a perfect score
No.
because you'd have to be like a terrible tyrant
You
who made
can't-
everyone's lives great.
Yeah.
But
You can't do that unless you're like tyrannically murdering the enemies of the state in brutal ways, I suppose, somehow. But that's, I don't know, man.
looking at this, Rome hasn't had a tyrant in a minute.
Yeah, no.
Optimus Trajan.
Nailed it.
Domitian the Forgotten is considered a tyrant, but even his score is
Yeah, but
only
not.
mid tier. Vespasian, and then we get back to Nero. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. And I will say, little spoilers, it's going to be good for a while, and then it's going to be
And then
really,
it's going to be really bad.
really
Yeah, it's
bad.
gonna be really, really bad. Barbarians get involved.
Big news. We're not going to skip anyone this time. This is going to be the first emperor to emperor non-skip.
Oh
We're going to go
my
straight to
gosh.
Hadrian.
Hey.
We only have a few more before things get really bad,
Well,
and then we have to start skipping a lot of people.
right, because it's so quick, probably,
Yeah,
and just uninteresting.
there might need to be a point where we spend an entire episode talking about all the emperors just briefly, like, and then this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy, and now next week we'll talk about the actual guy because it goes
The This
quick.
guy that ruled for longer than 3 months.
But-
okay,
but-
he's the next one.
We have some time, and we have some good emperors ahead. So we've already been babbling, but I suppose right about now we could wrap up the babble. And this is surprisingly is one of the shortest episodes so far.
Oh, I mean, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Really
he
interesting.
comes in, conquers, and leaves.
Yeah.
Great. So